I'm Brian Firth, a member of the Board of Heritage Conservancy, and I'm honored today to have the three most recent chairmen of the Board of Heritage Conservancy with me.
To me, it's the name Bucks County. There are very few places in America that are known by a county, a couple in New York that you can think of, but primarily Bucks County. But we've got so much history here, so much beautiful country, the Delaware River, its tributaries, etc. As I travel, and I haven't traveled as much as the gentleman next to me, but as I travel around this country anyway, I keep coming back and saying there really isn't a prettier place to live than around here.
The history is significant because an awful lot of what happened in the development and birth of our country washed back and forth across Bucks County as the ebb and tide of the Revolutionary War either went our way or was going the British way, and so there's a lot of history here, and you can point that out, and I think that's important to a lot of people.
Sure. We were actually, my wife and I were actually just walking in Washington Crossing State Park 2 days ago. You know, it's the amount of preserved land here and, you know, state-owned land is really fantastic.
Whenever I tell friends around the country that I live 10 miles from where George Washington crossed the Delaware, they're pretty impressed. I love living here. We've moved 14 times in our lifetime, my wife and I, before we moved here, and we never intend to ever move again. It's a great place to live. I can't imagine a better place to live.
The acquisition and establishment of a permanent home here in the Olney Mansion. Now, I understand we have to have development, there have to be places for people to live, but there also are valuable places here that we should preserve and keep for nature and for nature lovers and for being able to go out and enjoy the beautiful countryside that we have. And I love being able to drive around and seeing farms that have preserved by the Heritage Conservancy on it, and realize that that is land that will continue into perpetuity to be a beautiful open space.
The winds of change were needed, and so I implemented a lot of the winds of change here. It's brought about a lot of financial stability, a lot of organizational stability. We have very little turnover in personnel here because the people who work here are very dedicated and they like the working environment, and so to me that's sort of also my legacy, to have set a new pattern, a new way of trying to get us from here to there.
I see myself as a deal maker. I've had a lot of fun doing that. I love working with Jeff Marshall to pull things together. I guess if there's such a thing as a legacy, and I've never really thought much about that, that would, putting things like that together, Gutman Farm, etc., and a host of others are the things that I have enjoyed doing most of all. Could not have done any of them had the business organization not been in the shape that it got left in, courtesy of Marv. To get the younger people involved in it and to get them to have a love for the great outdoors that I had when I was 8 or 9 years old is, I struggle with that with my 4 grandsons who range in age from 13 to 17, to get them to have an appreciation of and a love for the great outdoors.
I'm a big fan of starting early, and I think education, even in the schoolrooms, is a very good way to get started. I know we're doing some of it. I don't know if there's a way to accelerate that or not, but I mean, young children who are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they're just like sponges waiting to absorb so much information, and I think we could help that process.
That's the answer. It's education. It's making the younger generations, young kids, know that what's out there in the countryside can be every bit as interesting and as stunning and thrilling to them as their iPads and their computers and their computer games and that sort of thing. And that's a matter of competing with those sorts of things.
I grew up in Africa, so I grew up in the big, wide open outdoors, and we didn't have television. So I grew up very close to nature, which is why I personally have been so interested in and supportive of Heritage Conservancy as, you know, something local that embodies something that is very dear to me.
I've had the opportunity to go to Africa with Brian.
Oh, good.
And I thank the Lord that we got back safely. Because he's a little bit, one day we were canoeing down the Zambezi River.
With the hippos.
And then all of a sudden we found ourselves almost surrounded by a pod of man-eating hippos. And I guess they weren't hungry, but they scared the living daylights out of me. Well, Brian was videoing it. So I'm not sure that's, you know.
I was in the third canoe. I could do the video.
I can relate to your growing up without television. Television didn't exist when I was a kid. That's how I got television, computers, computer games, none of that.
Cars, did they?
Couldn't afford cars.
Thank you very much.